Many of you who are not products of the failed gov-ed system over the last 20 years, you know the name Karl Marx. Because of the takeover of gov-ed by left-wing extremists, the dangers of the teachings of Marx, Mao, and the cancerous foundations of the Democrat Party are not taught in gov-ed anymore. Many of you might remember that Marx pushed a communist revolution thinking economics was the key to it. And where the economic communist wave laid waste to Russia, and to a lesser extent the capitals of Europe, and fully grips today the East, like China, the West, led by the United States, never succumbed to the collectivist socialist mindset because our cultural norms made sure our people could smell the stench of the leftist rats. But after being turned loose for 2 generations inside of gov-ed, programming young minds to turn on America, our foundational principles, their own parents, and God, the left has deployed their latest weapon against mankind: cultural Marxism. We expose why the majority of Americans, even the Democrats, know something is very wrong in America in today's preamble. I want to start off by showing you some pictures and some names. Now, this first graphic you all are intimately familiar with. These are the 18 GOP senators who sided with socialists to fund cultural Marxism being pushed onto our people with that disgraceful fake budget, the $1.7 trillion omnibus. Next, we have the names of those so-called Republicans in the Texas House who signed onto an illegal impeachment launched by anti-American socialists of an effective conservative Attorney General Ken Paxton. On social media, the left is gloating that this was a political endeavor, not a legal one. These Republicans, all of them, fall into one of 2 categories. First, some of these alleged Republicans are part of what Rush Limbaugh called the plastic banana good time rock and roller crowd. These are the vacuous members of the Republican Party. Think AOC. Think the AOCs of the GOP. And like AOC and her ilk, they run the GOP establishment. These fossils are either so old or so self-interested that they actually don't recognize the change in the Democrat Party that we've all witnessed over the last decade. These Republicans still think it's the 1990s. The other group of Republicans are actually leftists. People who couldn't get elected to power if they revealed their true ideology, so they pretend to be Republicans and work to bring down that party and deliver for Democrats in the name of republicanism. But they, too, are ignorant of the threat posed by the cultural Marxists who now run and control the Democrat Party. Now, many of you have written me emails that say, "What has happened to my country?" Well, what you're witnessing, and the vast majority of the Republican Party is surrendering to, is a full-blown attack on the West by Marxists. Now, they go by different names, but they're all Marxists, in some cases Maoists. Whatever their cause, their goal is the same: to get power over you, to tell you what to do against your best interests, and to hoard the wealth and resources of the planet for themselves. Many of the Marxism pushers are stupid enough to believe that they're actually going to get a share of all of that hoarded wealth. They are stupid to think so, but you will see evidence of that once I show you some examples of who these people are. Even though they are trying to hide it now, BLM is a Marxist movement. On their website, BLM admitted that they sought to undermine the foundations of Western civilization by destroying the nuclear family. Quote, "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages," like Hillary Clinton said, villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers and parents and children are comfortable, end quote. The website used to say that. They still work towards these ends. Well, they just lie now, like good little cultural Marxists, using race to push communism. The co-founder of BLM admits she's a trained Marxist. Yes, they have been trained in academia to bring down Western civilization, trained to destroy freedom, trained to enslave your children to an all-powerful state. BLM and Antifa, they are the advanced guard of the cultural Marxist brigades. Corporate America is on the cultural Marxism train, too. They demand your surrender, folks. 2 Lululemon employees were fired. Why? For confronting frequent looters who made a habit of robbing their store. Of course, we've seen Woke Disney, Coca-Cola, Bud Light, Miller Lite, North Face, and countless others all buy into the destruction of Western civilization, our stability, our laws, and our cultural norms, all in service to cultural Marxists. Again, through ignorance or complicity, only they would know for sure. The Democrat Party is one of the main instruments of injecting cultural Marxism into the United States in an effort to collapse our country from within. During this campaign for Virginia Governor, Terry McAuliffe infamously stated during a debate that, quote, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach," end quote. Now, since then, the Democrats' anti-family, anti-parental rights rhetoric has only grown more brazen. Just a few weeks ago, Virginia State Senator Monty Mason, a Marxist from Williamsburg, was caught on hot mic calling SB 1515 a bill that required creators of porn sites to verify users' identities. He called that bill, quote, parental garbage. But this cultural Marxist, using sexual perversion of children to advance their power of the state, was joined by another Democrat Marxist, State Rep. Shelley Simmons of Newport News. Governor Glenn Youngkin was pushing for an amendment that would have required parents to give their consent before children set up social media accounts or use websites that collect and potentially sell user data. That's common sense, right? But cultural Marxists, they thrive on making the state mommy and daddy. Senator Mason said this reasonable way to protect Virginia children was nothing more than, quote, all part of this parental crap that Republicans are selling, end quote. At that point, Representative Shelley Simmons agreed, chiming in that Democrats, quote, have to keep the Senate because the House is in the hands of Republicans and they can push through all kinds of stupid things, end quote. Parental rights to a Marxist is a stupid thing. And where does all of this lead? As I mentioned, the left has launched this Marxist attack on the entirety of the West. In Australia, the government, yes, the government is seeking to drive a feminist activist off of Twitter for declaring that men can't breastfeed children. You heard that right. The government is bringing pressure to steal free speech, to deny scientific fact in service to the cultural Marxist agenda. Now, I know that's a lot of bad news, but here's the good news. We have fought and defeated these Marxists before. Americans, real Americans, are better at it than anybody else in the world. And once we identify the cultural Marxists in our midst, and we identify their GOP enablers, using history as our guide, we know what to do. Ronald Reagan charted the course when he started planning the defeat of the Marxists in his era.
Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
This far, no further. But you can't fight an enemy if you don't know the enemy.